My father stood at the podium. Hundreds of doctors watched him. Everyone was applauding his Lifetime Achievement Award. But then he opened his mouth and destroyed me in front of them all. He called my career glorified babysitting. Said I played with finger paints while real men saved lives. The room erupted in laughter, until the woman in the back stood up, and the laughter died in their throats. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. My name is Isaiah Monroe. I'm 42 years old, and for the last 20 years, I've been fighting a war I never wanted. It started the day I told my father I wanted to teach preschool. I was 22, fresh out of Howard University, with a degree in early childhood education. I'd spent 4 years studying child development, learning how young minds grow, understanding that the first 5 years of a child's life shape everything that comes after. I was proud of that degree. My father wasn't. Carlton Monroe didn't raise his son to wipe noses. That's what he told me, standing in our kitchen in Southeast DC. His voice cold as January wind. He was already a big deal back then. Head of cardiac surgery at Mercy General Hospital. The man who'd performed over 3,000 open-heart surgeries. Who'd been written up in medical journals. Who had doctors from around the world coming to learn from him, and I was choosing to teach 3-year-olds their ABCs. "You're wasting your education," he said. "You're wasting your potential." My mother, Vivian, tried to smooth things over. She always did. She'd touch his arm. Suggest we talk about it later, remind him that teaching was noble work, but my father would just shake his head. Look at me like I'd disappointed him in the worst possible way. My sister Tamara understood. She was 18 then, about to start her own journey toward becoming a pediatric nurse. She'd pull me aside after family dinners. Tell me not to let Daddy get in my head. Tell me I was doing important work. But it wore on me. Every Sunday dinner became a battlefield. Every family gathering turned into an interrogation. "Still playing with blocks?" my father would ask. His surgeon friends would visit, accomplished men with letters after their names, and my father would introduce Tamara with pride. "She's in nursing school." Then he'd get to me. "Isaiah teaches preschool." The pause before preschool always felt like a knife. I could have walked away, cut him off. Plenty of people told me to. But he was my father. And somewhere deep down, I kept hoping he'd see me. Really see me. Understand that teaching children to read wasn't less important than fixing hearts. That shaping young minds mattered. That I was good at what I did. I was more than good. I was excellent. By 30, I'd become the lead teacher at Bright Horizons Preschool. By 35, I was the curriculum director for the entire district. I developed programs that helped at-risk kids catch up before kindergarten. Programs that worked. That got results. That changed lives. My father never asked about any of it. He'd talk about his latest surgery, his latest award, his latest medical conference. Then he'd turn to me and ask, "Still singing the alphabet song?" The worst part? I kept showing up, kept sitting at that table, kept trying to earn something I was never going to get. But what I said next was bad. What happened after was worse. 3 months ago, everything changed. Dr. Eleanor Hayes called me into her office. Eleanor was the chair of the Henderson Educational Foundation. The foundation was huge. Set up by the Henderson family fortune. It funded educational programs across the entire state, gave grants to schools, to hospitals for their educational outreach, to community programs. I'd been working with the foundation for 5 years, consulting on their early childhood initiatives, evaluating their grant applications, making sure their money was actually helping kids learn. Eleanor was a sharp woman, late 50s, former principal turned philanthropist. She didn't waste time on small talk. "Isaiah," she said, "I'm retiring." My heart sank. Eleanor was the reason I had this consulting work. She respected what I did, valued my expertise. "I'm recommending you as the new director of education." I stared at her. "What?" "You'd oversee all our educational grants, every program we fund, every dollar we give to schools, hospitals, community centers. You'd evaluate them, approve them, make sure they're actually educating people and not just wasting our money. That's a massive responsibility. You're ready for it. The board agrees. They're voting next week, but it's a formality. The job is yours if you want it." I wanted it. God, I wanted it. Not just for the title, not just for the six-figure salary, but because it was real power, real influence. The ability to shape how millions of dollars got spent on education. The ability to make sure programs actually helped kids instead of just looking good on paper. "When would I start?" I asked. "Immediately after the board votes. 2 weeks from today." I accepted on the spot. I didn't tell my father. Why would I? He'd find some way to diminish it. Call it education bureaucracy or something. Make it sound small compared to saving lives in an operating room. I told my mother, told Tamara. They were thrilled, proud, excited for me. "You have to tell Daddy," my mother said. "Why? So he can ruin it?" "Isaiah." Her voice got that gentle but firm tone, the one that meant she was about to say something I didn't want to hear. "He's your father. He loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it." I'd heard that line my whole life. It was starting to sound like an excuse. The board voted the following Tuesday. Unanimous approval. I was officially the Director of Education for the Henderson Educational Foundation. Eleanor threw me a small celebration, handed me a stack of grant applications to review. "These are time-sensitive," she said. "They need responses within 3 weeks." I took them home that night, started going through them one by one. That's when I saw it. Mercy General Hospital. Request for renewal of their annual educational outreach grant. $5 million. The grant funded their medical education programs, their community health workshops, their partnerships with local schools, my father's hospital. I should have recused myself right then. Passed it to another board member, but I didn't. I wanted to see what they were doing with that money. Wanted to see if it was actually helping people or just padding their reputation. I dug into the application, read every page, checked their outcomes, their metrics, their actual impact, and I found something interesting, something that made my hands shake. Their medical education programs were solid, top tier, excellent training for medical students and residents, but their community outreach, their partnerships with schools, their educational initiatives for underprivileged families, hollow, barely functional, poorly designed, more about photo opportunities than actual education. They were using education money for publicity, not for teaching. I sat at my kitchen table until 2 a.m, reading, analyzing, taking notes, building my case. This wasn't personal. This was professional. They weren't meeting the foundation's standards, simple as that. But there was something else. Something I wasn't ready to admit to myself yet. A small part of me was glad it was his hospital, glad I'd finally have something he couldn't dismiss, couldn't belittle, couldn't wave away. The gala was 3 days later. My father was receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from the State Medical Association. 50 years in medicine, thousands of lives saved, a legacy carved in surgical precision. The whole family was invited. My mother insisted I come. "It's a big night for your father," she said. "Family should be there." I almost said no, almost made up an excuse. But Tamara convinced me. "Come for Mama," she said. "She wants us all together." So I went, put on my best suit, drove to the grand ballroom at the waterfront hotel, walked into a room full of doctors and medical professionals. People in expensive clothes talking about procedures and patients and conferences in places I'd never been. I found my mother and Tamara at our table. My father was making the rounds, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. He was in his element, king of his kingdom. The ceremony started at 7. Speeches, awards, recognition for various achievements. My father's award was the finale, the big moment everyone was waiting for. Dr. Gregory Wells introduced him, talked about his contributions to cardiac surgery, his innovations, his mentorship, his dedication. Then my father took the stage. The applause was thunderous. He stood there, soaking it in, smiling that smile I'd seen 1,000 times, pride and satisfaction mixed together. He started his acceptance speech, thanked his colleagues, thanked the association, thanked his family. My wife, Vivian, has stood by me for 45 years, he said. My daughter, Tamara, is following in the family tradition as a pediatric nurse. She makes me proud every day. He paused, looked at me, and I knew what was coming. I could feel it in my bones. My son Isaiah chose a different path. He's a teacher, works with little kids. It's not for everyone. Polite chuckles from the audience. I tell people he's a professional babysitter. He colors with crayons while I repair hearts. The room laughed. Full-bellied laughs, doctors who saved lives finding humor in my father's casual cruelty. My mother's hand found mine under the table, squeezed tight. Tamara's eyes were wide, horrified. I sat there, frozen, humiliated in front of hundreds of strangers. But then something happened, something my father didn't see coming. Something that changed everything. A woman stood up in the back of the room. She was wearing a navy blue dress, professional, authoritative. I recognized her immediately. Dr. Eleanor Hayes. Dr. Monroe, she said. Her voice cut through the laughter like a scalpel. May I interrupt for just a moment? The room went quiet. My father looked confused. Of course, Dr. Hayes. She walked toward the stage. Every eye in the room followed her. I wanted to make an announcement while we're all gathered. As many of you know, the Henderson Educational Foundation provides significant funding to medical institutions across the state, including Mercy General Hospital, which receives $5 million annually for educational outreach. My father nodded, still not understanding. I'm pleased to announce that Isaiah Monroe, your son, has just been appointed as the Foundation's new Director of Education. He now has direct oversight of all our grant applications, including the one from Mercy General Hospital that's currently under review. The room went dead silent. My father's face changed. Confusion. Then realization. Then something that looked like fear. Eleanor smiled. So while Isaiah may color with crayons, Dr. Monroe, he also controls whether your hospital continues to receive millions in educational funding. I'd say that's a pretty real career, wouldn't you? She looked at me, winked, then walked back to her seat. The applause that followed was different, uncertain, awkward. People didn't know whether to congratulate my father or me. My father stood frozen at the podium, his lifetime achievement moment destroyed. His public humiliation of me backfiring in the worst possible way. He finished his speech quickly, stumbled through the thank yous, left the stage. I sat there, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. 20 years of being dismissed, of being belittled, of being treated like my work didn't matter. And in one moment, everything shifted. My phone buzzed, a text from Eleanor. You're welcome. Now go do your job and evaluate that grant fairly. No personal feelings, just the facts. I looked down at my phone. then up at the stage where my father had just been standing. And I realized something terrifying, something that made my stomach twist. I had power now, real power, power over something my father cared about deeply. The question was, what was I going to do with it? The drive home from the gala felt like a dream. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My mind replayed Eleanor's words over and over. The look on my father's face. That moment when everything flipped, when the power shifted from him to me. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt sick. My phone started ringing before I even got home. My father. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. 5 times before I pulled into my driveway. I sat in my car, listened to the messages. The first one was angry. "Isaiah, we need to talk. Now. Call me back." The second was more controlled. "Son, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We should discuss this calmly." By the 5th, his voice had changed completely. "Isaiah, please, call your father." I didn't call back. Not that night. I went inside, poured myself a drink. Sat in the dark thinking about what came next. Eleanor's text kept flashing in my mind. Evaluate that grant fairly. No personal feelings. Just the facts. She was right. This wasn't about revenge. This was about doing my job. The foundation trusted me to make sure their money was actually helping people. That's what I was going to do. But I'd be lying if I said part of me wasn't enjoying this. 20 years of being dismissed. And now I held something he needed. My mother called at 11. "Isaiah, baby, what's going on? Your father is beside himself." "Mama, I'm just doing my job." He didn't mean what he said tonight. You know how he gets. He was nervous. He says things. He's been saying things for 20 years, Mama. Silence on the other end. Then softly, "I know. I have to evaluate his hospital's grant application. That's my job now. It has nothing to do with what he said tonight." "But you're angry with him." "Yes, I'm angry. But I'm going to be professional. I promise you that." She sighed. "Just be careful, baby. Pride can make people do things they regret." After we hung up, I thought about her words. Was this about pride? Was I letting my hurt feelings cloud my judgment? I pulled out the Mercy General grant application, all 200 pages of it. I was going to read every single word, take detailed notes, evaluate it exactly like I'd evaluate any other application. No personal feelings, just the facts. But that wasn't even the complicated part. What happened next made everything worse. The next morning, my father showed up at my apartment. I opened the door, and there he stood. Carlton Munro, the great surgeon. Looking older than I'd ever seen him, tired, vulnerable. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside, let him in. We stood in my living room like strangers, 2 men who shared blood but little else. "I owe you an apology," he said. I waited, said nothing. What I said last night was wrong, inappropriate, hurtful. I was trying to be funny. I wasn't thinking about how it would make you feel. "You've been saying things like that for 20 years, Dad." "I know." He sat down on my couch, looked at his hands. "I don't know how to talk to you, Isaiah. I never have. Your sister, I understand. She's in medicine. We speak the same language. But you—" He trailed off. "I chose a different path." "You did, and I've been punishing you for it. I see that now." He looked up at me. "But I need you to understand something. That grant, it's not just about money. It's about programs that help people, community health workshops, school partnerships, Medical education for underprivileged kids who want to become doctors. I sat down across from him. I've read the application. And I'm still evaluating it. His jaw tightened. Isaiah, this is important. I know it is. That's why I'm being thorough. Are you going to let what happened last night influence your decision? There it was. The real question. The real fear. No, I said. I'm going to evaluate your hospital's application based on the same criteria I use for every other application. If it meets our standards, it gets funded. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's all I'm asking. But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe me. He thought I was going to use this as payback. Maybe he was right to worry. Maybe I wasn't as professional as I claimed to be. He left a few minutes later. I watched him walk to his car. His shoulders slumped. For the first time in my life, my father looked defeated. And I'd done that. Me, the babysitter. I spent the next week deep in that grant application, reading every section, checking every claim, following up on their reported outcomes. The medical education programs were impressive, really impressive. They trained residents, brought in medical students from underserved communities, provided mentorship. The numbers checked out. The outcomes were real. But then I got to the community outreach section, the part that was supposed to justify calling this an educational grant instead of just a medical training grant. That's where things fell apart. They claimed to run health literacy workshops in 5 local schools. I called those schools. 3 of them had no record of any workshops. One said they'd had a single assembly 2 years ago. The 5th confirmed regular visits, but described them as doctors talking about their jobs rather than actual health education. They claimed to provide educational materials to low-income families. I requested samples. They sent me glossy brochures about the hospital's services, marketing materials, not educational content. They claimed to partner with community centers to teach basic health skills. I visited 2 of those centers. Both said the partnership consisted of the hospital's logo on their wall and an occasional donated blood pressure cuff. The more I dug, the clearer it became. Mercy General was using education money for publicity. They wanted the prestige of being an educational institution. They wanted the foundation's seal of approval. But they weren't actually educating anyone outside their own walls. This wasn't about my father. This was about the hospital failing to meet its obligations. I started drafting my evaluation report, documented every discrepancy, every false claim, every program that existed on paper but not in reality. My recommendation: reduce the grant from $5 million to $2 million. Fund only the medical training programs that actually worked. Cut everything else until they could prove real educational impact. $3 million. Gone. Because they couldn't be bothered to do what they promised. I finished the report on a Friday afternoon, sent it to Eleanor for review. She called me 20 minutes later. "This is thorough," she said. "Are you sure about these findings?" I called every school, visited the community centers, requested documentation. It's all in the report. And you're comfortable with this recommendation, given the personal dynamics? If this was any other hospital, would you question my recommendation? Silence. Then, no, I wouldn't. Your evaluation is solid. I'll present it to the board next week. After we hung up, I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen. I'd just recommended cutting my father's hospital's funding by $3 million. Professional, fact-based, justified. But it would destroy him. I knew it would. This grant was his legacy project, something he'd fought for, something he'd built his reputation on, and I'd just torn it down. My phone rang. Tamarara. "Isaiah, we need to talk. Daddy knows." My blood went cold. "Knows what?" "About your evaluation. Someone at the hospital told him you're recommending a massive cut to their grant. He's on his way to your apartment right now. And Isaiah, He's not coming to apologize this time. I looked out my window, saw my father's car pulling into the parking lot, watched him get out, watched him march toward my building. His face was rage, pure rage. I stood up, walked to my door, waited. The knock came hard, aggressive, not the knock of a father visiting his son, the knock of a man ready for war. I opened the door. My father pushed past me, spun around. His face was red. His hands were shaking. $3 million, he shouted. You're cutting $3 million from our grant. Dad, don't you dare dad me. You're destroying programs that help people. You're destroying my legacy. Over what? Hurt feelings? Bruised ego? It's not about feelings. Your hospital isn't meeting the grant requirements. That's garbage and you know it. We run excellent programs. Your medical training programs are excellent. Your community outreach is non-existent. You're lying on your application. His hand came up. For a second, I thought he might hit me. He'd never done that before. Not once in my life. But right now, in this moment, he looked capable of it. I'm not lying, he said. His voice was low, dangerous. We provide valuable services to this community. Then prove it. Show me the workshops, show me the partnerships, show me actual educational outcomes instead of just brochures and press releases. You want to humiliate me, just like I humiliated you at the gala. I want you to do what you promised, what you took $5 million to do. We stood there, father and son, across a divide that had been growing for 20 years, finally wide enough that neither of us could cross it. If you do this, he said quietly, we're done, you and me. I will not forgive this. I'm doing my job, Dad. The same job you've been dismissing for 2 decades, the same job you called babysitting. Turns out it matters. Turns out it has consequences. And you're the one who taught me that actions have consequences, remember? His face changed. Something broke behind his eyes. You've wanted this for years, haven't you? A chance to hurt me the way I hurt you. No, I wanted you to respect me. I wanted you to see me as an equal. I wanted you to stop treating my career like a joke. But you couldn't do that. So here we are. He moved toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. The board meets Tuesday. You have until then to reconsider. Think about what you're really doing here. Think about whether your pride is worth destroying your family. He left. The door slammed behind him. I stood there, my heart hammering, my hands shaking, wondering if I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Your father just told me what's happening. Isaiah, please, there has to be another way. This will kill him. Please don't do this. Then another text, from Tamara. I know you're right about the grant. I know Daddy's been wrong about how he treats you. But Mom is falling apart. Can we talk? Can we figure this out? I sat down on my couch, put my head in my hands. This was supposed to be simple. Evaluate the grant. Make a recommendation. Do my job. Instead, I was being asked to choose between my professional integrity and my family. But there was something else. Something I hadn't told anyone. Something I'd discovered buried deep in the hospital's financial records. Something that made the whole situation infinitely worse. The grant money wasn't just being wasted on fake programs. Some of it was missing entirely, unaccounted for. Tens of thousands of dollars with no paper trail. Someone at Mercy General was stealing from the foundation, and I was starting to suspect I knew who. I spent the weekend tracking the money, following the paper trail, downloading financial reports, cross-referencing expenditures with program descriptions. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. $68,000, missing, unaccounted for. gone. The money had been allocated for community health education supplies, but there were no receipts, no invoices, no documentation of what those supplies were or where they went. Just approval signatures from the hospital's grant management office. And one of those signatures was my father's. I stared at his signature on the approval form. Dr. Carlton Munro, Chief of Cardiac Surgery, Grant Oversight Committee. He'd signed off on ghost expenses. Either he was stealing the money himself, or he knew someone else was, and he'd covered for them. Either way, this was fraud. Criminal fraud. Against the foundation that now employed me. I should have called Eleanor immediately. Should have reported it. Should have done my job. But he was my father. And before I destroyed him completely, I needed to know the truth. I called him Sunday evening. We need to talk, in person, tomorrow morning. Isaiah, if this is about the grant, it's about $68,000 that's missing from your hospital's accounts. We need to talk, now. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, my office. 7 a.m., before anyone else arrives. I didn't sleep that night, kept running scenarios in my head. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the records were incomplete. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. But I knew better. I'd been reviewing grant applications for 5 years. I knew what fraud looked like. I arrived at Mercy General at 6:45. The hospital was quiet, just night shift nurses and early morning cleaning crews. I found my father's office on the 4th floor. The door was open. He was sitting at his desk, looking 10 years older than he had a week ago. "Close the door," he said. I did. Sat down across from him. Put the financial documents on his desk. "Explain this to me," I said. He looked at the papers, didn't pick them up, didn't even touch them. "How deep did you dig?" "Deep enough. $68,000 allocated for community health supplies. No receipts, no documentation, just your signature approving the expenditures. So either you took the money or you know who did." "I didn't take it." "Then who did?" He looked out his window, watched the sunrise painting the city orange and pink. "Your mother." The world stopped spinning. "What?" "Your mother took the money. I signed off on it. I helped her cover it up. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My mother? Vivian Munro? The woman who'd never even gotten a parking ticket? Why would Mama steal from a foundation? She didn't steal it. She used it. For something important. Something that couldn't wait. Dad, that's literally the definition of theft." He turned back to me. His eyes were wet. I'd never seen my father cry. Not once in 42 years. "Your mother has a sister, Loretta, lives in Alabama. You met her once when you were little." I vaguely remembered. A kind woman with a warm smile, Mama's older sister. "Loretta has 2 grandsons, twins, smart boys. Brilliant, actually. They got accepted to Morehouse College, full academic scholarships. But the scholarship didn't cover living expenses, books, transportation, all the costs that keep poor kids from finishing college even when they get in. And Mama gave them the money. $22,000 for each boy. Enough to get them through 4 years if they're careful. The rest went to 3 other kids in similar situations. Kids from our church, from the neighborhood. Kids who had the grades but not the money. I sat back, tried to process this. She stole from an educational foundation to fund students' education. She didn't see it as stealing. She saw it as redirecting funds to where they'd actually help people, instead of paying for brochures and hospital PR campaigns. But it's still fraud, Dad. It's still illegal. I know. He leaned forward. When she told me what she'd done, I should have reported it. Should have made her return the money. But Isaiah, I saw those boys. saw what that money meant to them, saw their futures opening up. And I couldn't take that away. So I signed the forms, made it look legitimate. Protected your mother. This wasn't what I expected. Not at all. I'd come here ready to confront a thief. Instead, I found something infinitely more complicated. The board meets tomorrow, I said. I have to present my evaluation. I know. If I include this in my report, Mama gets arrested, you get arrested, everything you've built gets destroyed. Yes. And if I don't include it, I'm complicit in fraud. I lose my job. Maybe worse. He nodded slowly. So now you know what it feels like. To have to choose between doing what's right and protecting the people you love. But that wasn't even the hardest part. What he said next changed everything again. There's one more thing you need to know, my father said. The reason I've been so hard on you all these years. The reason I couldn't accept your career choice. I don't need to hear this right now. Yes, you do. Because it matters. He stood up, walked to a filing cabinet, pulled out an old folder, set it on the desk between us. Inside were acceptance letters from medical schools, Duke, Johns Hopkins, Columbia. All addressed to Isaiah Monroe. All dated 24 years ago. What is this? You applied to medical school during your senior year at Howard. You got in. To some of the best programs in the country. I found the letters in your dorm room when I helped you move out. My stomach dropped. I don't remember applying. Because you didn't. I did. Forged your signature, wrote your essays, used my connections to get you interviews. I was convinced that if you just got in, you'd see it was the right path, that you'd forget about teaching and become a doctor. I stared at him. You did what? I sabotaged your life because I couldn't accept your choices. And when you never mentioned the acceptance letters, I realized you'd thrown them away without even reading them. You were that certain about teaching, that committed to your own path. And I hated you for it. Hated that you wouldn't let me shape your future. So you spent 20 years punishing me for it. Yes, and I was wrong. Watching you this past week, seeing how thorough you've been, how professional, how much you actually care about education, making a real difference, I finally understand. You found your calling. I just couldn't see it because it wasn't mine. We sat in silence. The sun was fully up now. The hospital was coming to life. Doctors arriving for morning rounds. The real world pushing in. I don't know what to do, I said quietly. Neither do I. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Tuesday. I had 18 hours to make a decision. I drove to my mother's house, found her in the kitchen. She knew why I was there. I could see it in her face. Isaiah, baby. Mama, why didn't you ask me? I would have helped you find legal ways to fund those students. Would you have? Or would you have told me it wasn't appropriate, that there were proper channels? She sat down at the kitchen table, patted the chair next to her. Sometimes proper channels move too slow. Sometimes kids need help right now, not next semester after the paperwork clears. But you committed fraud. I helped children get educated, using money from an educational foundation. Money that would have been wasted on fake programs anyway. She took my hand. Your father told me what you found. Told me you're presenting to the board today. And I want you to know something. Whatever you decide, I support you. If you need to report what I did, I understand. You have to do your job. Mama, you could go to jail. Then I go to jail. But those boys are in school. That matters more. I left her house more confused than when I arrived. Drove around the city for hours, thinking, wrestling, trying to find a solution that didn't destroy everything. Finally, I went to Eleanor's office, told her everything, the missing money, my mother, My father's cover-up, all of it. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. What do you want to do? I don't know. That's why I'm here. Isaiah, I've been running this foundation for 20 years. You know what I've learned? Rules exist to serve people, not the other way around. Your mother broke the rules, but she fulfilled our mission better than most programs we fund. So you think I should bury it? I think you should do what you think is right, but whatever you decide, I'll back you up. The board meeting came. I walked into the conference room. 8 board members. Eleanor at the head of the table. My evaluation report ready to present. I started with the medical training programs, highlighted their strengths, recommended continued funding, $2 million allocated. Then I got to the community outreach, documented the failures, the false claims, the wasted money. However, I said, I discovered something interesting in my investigation. While the official programs were ineffective, there's evidence that grant money was redirected to direct student support, funding college expenses for underprivileged students. It wasn't authorized, it wasn't documented properly, but it achieved actual educational outcomes. The board members looked at each other, confused. Are you saying the money was stolen? One asked. I'm saying the money was used for education, just not the education that was promised, which raises a question for this board. Is our goal to fund specific programs or to fund educational outcomes? Eleanor smiled slightly. She saw where I was going. My recommendation is this. Fund Mercy General's medical training at $2 million. Eliminate the community outreach grant entirely, but create a new grant program, a direct student support fund. Managed by the foundation, not the hospitals. We identify students who need help. We fund them directly. We track real outcomes. And who would run this new program? A board member asked. I would. As part of my duties as director, we'd start with $1 million, 15 to 20 students per year. Real support, real results. The board voted. Unanimous approval. The new program launched. And 3 months later, my mother's sister's grandsons were among the first recipients of official Henderson Foundation scholarships. Legal, documented, proper. My father never thanked me. He couldn't. To thank me would be to admit what had happened, to admit his wife had committed fraud, and I'd found a way to make it right without destroying her. But things changed between us. Slowly, carefully. He started asking about my work, actually listening to the answers. He came to a foundation event where I spoke about early childhood education. He sat in the back, stayed for the whole thing. After, he found me in the lobby. You were right, he said quietly. What you do matters. It always did. I just couldn't see it. It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't 20 years of hurt erased. But it was something. A crack in the wall between us. A place where light could finally get through. The hospital's grant was reduced to $2 million. They restructured their programs, started actually partnering with schools, building real educational initiatives. They had to. I was watching now, and I didn't accept fake results anymore. My mother never spoke about what happened, but sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with this expression, gratitude mixed with something else. Pride, maybe. That her son had found a way to do the right thing even when the right thing wasn't clear. Tamara told me our family was broken, but healing. You'll hurt each other, she said, but you're both trying now. That's more than most families manage. She was right. We were trying. It was messy. It was complicated. It was painful. But we were trying. 6 months later, I got an invitation in the mail. The Medical Association's annual gala. My father was speaking. There was a handwritten note attached. Isaiah, please come. I'd like you to hear this. Dad. I went. Sat in the back. Watched my father take the stage. He talked about his career, his patients, his legacy. Then he said something that made my breath catch. I spent 50 years believing that saving lives in an operating room was the highest calling. But I was wrong. My son Isaiah saves lives, too. He helps children learn to read. He makes sure educational funding actually educates. He showed me that there are many ways to matter, many ways to make a difference, and I'm proud of him. I should have said that 20 years ago, but I'm saying it now. The applause was genuine this time, warm, respectful. I sat there with tears on my face, finally hearing the words I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. It wasn't a perfect ending. Our relationship was still complicated, still carried scars. My professional decision had humiliated him publicly, cost his hospital $3 million, forced him to rebuild programs from scratch, but it also freed us both, freed me from needing his approval, freed him from the burden of always being right. We were equals now, finally, painfully, truly. And sometimes that's the best kind of victory, the kind that costs you something, the kind that changes everyone involved, the kind where nobody wins cleanly, but everyone comes out better than they started. Thank you for staying until the end. Please help us reach our goal by subscribing to the channel. What did you think of this story? Let us know in the comments.